McCullough. We are now recording. Just so you know, I'm Jeffrey McCullough. I'm chair of ASID New Jersey Student Week 2021. Welcome everyone to tonight's program on commercial design. We are very fortunate to have MJ Davino from Kane University moderating and chairing the panel tonight, which is comprised of Susan Globus and Beth Isabella, two commercial designers who are quite lauded and respected in our industry, and we're grateful to have them presenting to all of you tonight, talking about their journey in our profession. Before I turn it over to MJ, I just wanted to say that we want to thank our sponsors. Our gold sponsors are Sherwin-Williams and Design NJ Magazine, and our silver sponsor, Benjamin Moore. We could not do it without the chapter sponsors. We couldn't make this week happen. So MJ, I'm handing it off to you. Take it away.
Great. Thank you, Jeffrey. It's great to see so many people on this at this discussion. Very grateful to be leading this discussion. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is MJ Davino. I'm the coordinator of the interior design program at Kane University, right here. This shirt is for sale, by the way, not this actual shirt, but it's available. I also am the owner of MK Davino Interiors, which is basically run by my wife. She's an interior designer as well. And like Jeffrey said, I have the honor of introducing our esteemed guests today, Beth Isabella and Susan Globus. And so how tonight is going to work is that Beth will speak first and talk about her journey. We'll have a little bit of question and answer after she speaks. And then Susan will take her turn. And then we'll have a longer Q&A session afterwards. So you can direct your questions to either Beth or Susan. All right, so I'm going to kick this off by introducing Beth first. And I do apologize. I'm going to read this because she's a very accomplished designer. But Beth Isabella Walsh is the principal at Isabella Design, founded in 1993. She's an ASID Design Excellence Gold, Silver, Bronze, and Sustainable Award winner with over 30 years of experience. Beth has developed her expertise in commercial, healthcare, corporate, educational, government, and residential spaces with a commitment to design excellence. Her Little Silver, New Jersey-based firm provides highly creative and cost-effective professional space planning and interior design services to high-profile businesses, including several Fortune 500 companies. Beth's passion for design and intuition for turning client visions into a reality has nurtured several decade-long relationships, including 25-year relationships with Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. Prior to Isabella Design, Ms. Walsh was employed for 12 years as Director of Interior Design and Senior Associate at a large architectural interiors firm in New Jersey. Graduate of Drexel University in Philadelphia, Beth earned her Bachelor of Science degree in Interior Design. Currently resides in Monmouth County with her husband and 3 sons. So everybody welcome Beth, and Beth, take it away. You're still muted, Beth.
Beth, you're on mute.
Okay, let's try it again. All good? Can you see the screen?
No, we only see you, Beth.
Try it again. It worked before. Try one more time. one sec. I don't know why it worked last time and it's not working this time. Hmm.
It's starting now.
Can you see now?
Yeah,
You see
it's
your-
good now.
Yes?
Yes, we
Yes.
see your desktop.
You see? Oh, good.
Now,
All right,
there you
great.
go.
Thank you. All right, great. So thank you again to ASID New Jersey, MJ Davino, and Jeffrey McCullough for putting together. I'm honored to share this panel discussion with Susan Globus. We've known each other for many years. She's very talented and very well respected in our industry. Thank you for joining this virtual discussion. I am excited to bring you through my journey as an interior designer. So, like you, in college, I was able to go to Drexel University and engage in their co-op program. There, I worked at 2 different co-ops, which was Prudential in Newark, New Jersey, in their facilities department, which Prudential has their own interior designers and space planners on staff for all their locations. I also worked at Kirshner Office Furniture, which was outside Philadelphia, which is a family-owned furniture dealership. I actually took 1 subway and 2 buses to get to my co-op job every day. After the co-op program was completed and I was a senior, I took additional work while I was still at college and worked for Knoll International in their textiles division in Philadelphia. I worked very closely with the Philadelphia rep there. I was also offered a full-time job from Knoll International in New York City in a sales position selling furniture, but I didn't take it because my heart was really in the interior design field. My experience now had encompassed working for a dealer, a manufacturer, and facilities, and I was now moving forward to work for my experience full-time at an architectural firm. So at Roth Johnson Associates, I joined them as a junior interior designer, Roth Johnson was one of the 3rd largest architectural firms in New Jersey. It was a 50+ man firm. And I worked up to become a senior interior designer and then director of interiors there. I was also a senior associate of the firm, and I was there for 12 years. After I realized that I reached the glass ceiling being in a men's architectural firm, and times were very different at the time, and as a woman, I knew that this was the farthest that I would go in this position. So I decided it was time to move on. So I gave them 4 weeks notice since I was working on so many projects. I left on a Friday and I started Isabella Design on a Monday in 1993. Since then, I'm in business for 25 years, and I also am on the Interior Design Examination and Evaluation Committee in New Jersey for the State Board, which I was appointed by Governor Christie. At Roth Johnson Associates, which is the architectural firm, the types of projects we worked on were corporate law, educational, healthcare, institutional, justice facilities, governmental, and laboratories. So I was able to get huge experience working for them. The first project that they gave me to work as designer was Sunshine Biscuits. And this project was very special because the space planning was all perimeter circulation. Excuse me. If you see on the bottom right here was the executive offices, and that's where the offices were along the perimeter walls. And the executive, the CEO, and the boardroom as well. So even though Sunshine was the name of the company, everybody got a bit of sunshine. So we were able to take advantage of the full height perimeter walls and use this to our advantage so that the daylight would come in from the exterior and penetrate through the glass of the workstations all the way into the core where the offices were located. And those offices also had glass along the fronts of those as well. So well, on the first floor, we had the cafeteria and IT and a computer room. So I'm just going to take you as a flashback in the 80s right now. And this was actually, you could see the perimeter circulation, but this was actually the palette that was really popular during the 80s. It was mauve and teal. And even though the furniture is pretty similar, the colors are just very different. Here you can see the perimeter or the interior offices with the glass panels, as well as the workstations. The workstations really haven't evolved as much, which we have today. It's just the colors that really have changed. And on the right-hand side is the perimeter offices, which this is an executive office, which we relocated existing high-quality desks and reused some of their furniture and just refinished it and reupholstered it so that it gave it more transitional look. So then when I was still at Roth Johnson, and as soon as I met the requirements to take the NCIDQ exam, I committed to become certified, and I took the ASID course in Woodcliff Lake, New Jersey. I studied with my interior design colleagues as well as clients who were in facilities to take the test. It was a two-part exam at the time, and after passing, I joined ASID and IBD, which IBD is the Institute of Business Designers. They were also more contract designers that were part of this group. I became very active in IBD. I was on committees. I chaired a bunch of groups. I was a board member, and I actually became president of IBD for a 2-year term, or 2 terms, I should say. IBD then merged and became IIDA, which is what we know today. And I'm a professional member of ASID and IIDA. So now Isabella Design formed, and it really was not what I expected to happen. I built a lot of relationships with my clients, and it was really client driven. They wanted to work with me. Every time I told them that I took another job to go work for somebody else, they basically said, no, we want to work with you. So I started the company in 1993 and am now a WBENC firm, which is a women's business minority owned firm, which a lot of companies request to have minority firms as part of their team. So here at Isabella Design, our types of projects are corporate, law, educational, healthcare, governmental, laboratories, and we also have residential. The menu of services is pretty much what you learn in school. It's exactly the same process of interior design. And it goes from pre-design programming, schematic design, and all the aspects that are underneath are all part of it. Design development, contract documents, project management, and construction administration, which goes all the way to post-occupancy. Some of the recent projects, as MJ mentioned, are Fortune 500 companies, which you probably notice here on the screen. Pfizer Inc. was one of the companies who the first project that they gave me was 120,000 square feet, which, if you know what square footage can relate to, it's 3 football fields big. And that was the first project that they gave me as for Isabella Design. And after that, we were on-call services for Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson for over 20 something years. And it included 6 building locations in New York City. We also have projects that are on this list that are corporate, government, and healthcare. And we constantly are doing residential in between. The residential projects are mostly our corporate clients that have requested interior design services for their own homes. So here's a list of the awards that we have won over the years. The Design Excellence Awards, I'm sure you're familiar with. It's a process that you have to enter a project. It gets judged nationally and selected. And they also have a student portion now, and the competition is going on right now. So if you're not, if you haven't entered anything, it's not too late. You still can enter a project on the ASID website. And you really should, because it's great recognition. So here are some projects that we have designed. Everybody likes to see the photos. The project, these are both in New York City. The project on the top is a 24/7 printing company. So you can only imagine what construction and demo was for a 24/7 operation. The table shown is a 30-foot long table that was custom made. It has built-in microphones in the table as well as in the ceiling so that you can communicate from one end of the table to the other. That won a gold award. The photo on the right is just one typical executive office that we designed for. We did all the executive levels from CEO to all the senior vice president offices. And we pretty much did about 75 of these corporate offices a year for about 20 something years. We were also on the cover of Blueprint magazine, which is ASID New Jersey's publication. This is for a greeting card company that we designed their offices, their warehouse, their showroom, and this is their company boardroom, and we won an ASID Silver Award for this project. This is a before and after photo of a corporate lobby that we worked on just recently. The right photo is what it looked like before, and on the left you can see that we used full height porcelain tiles that are butt matched. And we also have porcelain tiles on the floor. So it all mimics real stone with a lot less of a cost. This is another project that we won a gold award for. And also at the time, ASID had a Sustainable Design Recognition Award, which we won also. So this company was a demolition company, and we were able to take bricks from actual projects that they demoed, and we were able to recycle them and reuse them for the interiors of their new building. On the left is an executive office, and the right is a shared office. This is a law firm that we recently completed in Newark. This table is a glass table that seats 24 people. It also has perimeter power edge, and it has LED lighting above. All of the glass, the full height glass, was along all of the conference rooms and all the offices in this whole space. As you can see on the right, you can get a little see a little bit of a smaller conference room in the waiting area. We were published again on the cover of Blueprint for this dental office. And this doctor really wanted to bring the environment from the outdoors inside. So we did that with a bunch of different type of finishes. We used a bunch of murals, and all rainwater was used to install all the wall coverings. This was another healthcare project that won a gold award for, and this is the doctor is a spine and hip doctor. So he wanted it's very common, custom wall feature in the back. and all the seating was Krypton and bleach cleanable vinyls. The chairs on the right are higher seat, and at the time there was no manufacturer that made a chair that had a higher seat. So we designed these chairs so that the hip patients can sit in them a lot easier than a standard seating height. The manufacturer loved the chairs so much that they're now in their product line. This is another healthcare project. The doctor is from the West Indies, and he wanted to bring a little bit of his hometown to his patients. So we were able to bring that into his exam rooms. And to the right, you could see the hallways with acrylic panels that divide the space for privacy for billing. Here's an entry lobby that, again, we use porcelain large format tiles to mimic limestone, and that pierce straight through into their space. We actually use glass in between with reeds of wooden reeds, so that it gave them some opaqueness so you didn't see directly into their space. We use porcelain on the floor as well as a large walk-off carpet tiles also. And on the right is an OBGYN's office. So she wanted all jewel tones in her office, and in her patient exam rooms. So this was one of the orange schemes. And we also played with the lighting with different diffusers of different patterns, and so that you can not see the bare bulbs when you're being examined. We also did a whole wing for pediatrics, which won a silver award. And to the left is a typical patient room, and to the right is a treatment room. The flooring in this treatment room is a vinyl flooring that it mimics sand when you enter the room, and then it butts up to a freeform pattern to a vinyl that mimics water. And on top of the treatment table is actually a pool float. So the child would lay on the pool float and be floating in the water, has a beach scene on the wall, and the cooler acts as a treasure chest. So at the end of their treatment, they can hunt for a souvenir to bring home. That was also a silver award winner also. Here's another silver award winner that we were commissioned to do for a family who donated money for the hospital. They wanted a room that was for families for oncology patients, that was not so sterile and not hospital-like. They wanted it more hotel-like looking, more residential, or res-mercial, as we say. And they wanted to be able to watch television, be able to hang out, eat, read, stay overnight if they had to, so that they had somewhere to go instead of just waiting in a sterile lobby. This was a governmental project that we completed. It was 120,000 square feet for Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office. This is their lobby and waiting area. We won a bronze award for this project. The uniqueness of this project was it encompassed so many different types of functions in the building, including actual cells for people that were going to be in investigation. We also had a whole investigation rooms with all materials that were used for their cases. We had all executive offices, lunchrooms. It was a whole complete gym. It was a multifunctional space. There was a training room, which you see on the left side. This is a multifunctional room. And on the right-hand side is one of the main prosecutors in New Jersey. That's his office. That won a bronze award. We're currently working on a project that's really unique. It's for the Delaware River Joint Toll Bridge Commission. You're thinking to yourself, what does that mean? Those are your toll collectors and the guys that plow your roads. on all of our county roads. This project is 3 projects in 2 different states. It's in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania. And we also developed standards for furniture for them so that it was consistent for all 3 locations that they were going to occupy. And these are typicals for all 3 of the projects. As I mentioned, we also have residential clients. Most of our residential work is from our corporate clients who we became very close with over all the years. They're still clients of mine from when I first started in the industry that are still current clients, and we just keep repeating and doing more and more locations as they move and buy more properties. The project on the left is in Princeton, New Jersey. On the right is a contemporary Palm Beach kitchen view of a This was just published recently in a magazine. This was a client of ours who asked us to renovate his new house and that he purchased. It was very traditional, and we changed the whole look of it. And he's also a musician. So we have a lot of different rooms for him to entertain his family and his friends. So we're located in Little Silver, New Jersey. This is our contact information. Please follow us. I know you guys are big on social media, but we are constantly upgrading or updating weekly on Instagram and Facebook projects that are under construction, and you can see the development of them each week as we post new photos. We're also on LinkedIn, and there's our QR code that goes to our website. And we would love to have you guys follow us, and we could follow you back. We also have interns that work at our office. We've have a lot of students from Brookdale and King College. And just a little side note, some of the interns that we've had are have been with me for over 10 years. And with a tight-knit family. Thank you.
Great. So thank you, Beth. So, we'll take a few questions right now. If you want to ask a question of Beth, if you could write it in the chat, that's probably the best way to do it so we're not all talking over each other. One of the questions that did pop up while you were speaking, Beth, was could you explain how you did the isometric furniture renderings on that one project?
The toll booth project, Beth.
Yes. Oh, I think you're frozen. Freezing. Are you there, Beth?
AutoCAD and Revit in our office. Can you hear me?
We
Yeah,
can
we
now.
can. We can now.
Okay, so we have AutoCAD and Revit in our office, and those were done on Revit program.
Great. Nadine, does that answer your question? Or is there something specific further that you'd like to know? It answered her question, yes. Thank you, Beth.
There's a question from Raina. What
We
kind
also
of
do work
projects?
on
Question from Raina. What kind of projects do you enjoy the most?
That's tough because they're all so different, and the clients are so different, and their requests are so different. I think that that's probably what I enjoy most, is that they're all so different. I enjoy, especially when we work with Connie showed you, as we just renovated all the bathrooms. We redid all of the lobby and office space, which is included
Beth, can you hear me? I think your audio is cutting out and your video is also frozen.
MJ, I think we should move on to Susan's presentation.
Okay. Oh yeah, I think Beth actually went away.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the questions on the chat, so we'll get back to that when Beth can log back on. So now we will move on to Susan, and I will do the introduction for Susan as well. Susan Globus is a fellow of the ASID, also NCIDQ certified lead AP and a New Jersey certified interior designer, and principal of Globus Design Associates, specializing in interior design of libraries, and a principal of the Greenway Group, where she specializes in strategic planning, leadership, and business development for A&D firms and educational institutions. Susan has been invited to present at conferences across the country about topics ranging from future trends and design thinking to sustainability, privacy in the workplace, and using evidence-based design in practice. A frequent judge to select new materials to be included in the global collection of Material Connection. Susan has also judged Metropolis Magazine's Next Generation International Design Contest, and most recently the Taipei International Design Awards. As American Ambassador to the International Federation of Interior Architects Designers, IFI, and a past board member, Susan coordinated the IFI Think Tank Initiative for the Americas, which resulted in the Declaration of Interior Design adopted by countries around the globe. She was appointed by the New Jersey governor to serve as a charter member of the state's Interior Design Examination and Evaluation Committee to certify interior designers. As an adjunct professor at Kane, Susan taught sustainable design to a combination of science and design students. Susan was asked to join the advisory group developing green remodeling guidelines for the NJ Center for Green Building at Edward J. Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy at Rutgers University, and her writing most recently has been included in The State of the Interior Design Profession, Martin Guerin Fairchild Books. A past national chair of the American Society of Interior Designers, Susan is a fellow of the organization. She is the former chair of the ASID Foundation. She serves on the Interior Design Advisory Board of Brookdale Community College and actively mentors emerging interior design practitioners, including most recently from our Kane senior thesis class. So Susan, welcome, and take it away.
Thank you, MJ. Thank you, NJ ASID and the sponsors, and especially thank you to all of you who were interested or interested enough to join in on this snowy evening. My path through to interior design is a little different. I think, like many of you, it's a second career for me. Ever since as early as I could remember, I wanted to be a writer. So I got a degree in journalism with a concentration in public relations from the School of Business at University of Maryland. And I was fortunate enough to reach a lifelong goal at age 24, and that was to become a newspaper editor. And I started to think, well, what's next for me? Perhaps I should write a book. And then I realized I really didn't know much about anything but writing, and I better go learn something else. So I went back to something that had interested me as a writer, and that was environmental design. And I enrolled in a one-year course at New York School of Interior Design just to see if I liked design. And I loved it. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And I found out that Kane had a program. And so I started my studies, finished my studies at Kane. It took me 8 years to get through because, probably like some of you, I was working and parenting, and life gets in the way. So 8 years later, I completed that program with what they call a post-baccalaureate major, which simply meant I didn't have to sit through freshman English again. And at the time, I was going through some life changes and I needed to get a well-paying job. So I worked for an office furniture dealership. And it wasn't my ideal job, but in retrospect, it was the absolute perfect job at the perfect time, because it taught me so much about the manufacturing process, what happens to product from the time it's designed to it's manufactured to it's shipped and installed. And it taught me about sales, and it was just invaluable experience. So one day when I was talking to one of my clients, I worked mostly for state projects, and I was talking to the director of purchase at Ocean County, and I said, I really want to start my own firm. And he said, well, we're launching a building project, a building program for 12 libraries in the county. Why don't you go meet with the library director? So I took her out to lunch. At the end of the lunch, she said, I'd like to give you a contract to do the interior design. And I said, well, what does that mean to you? And she said, I want you to pick out colors, right? That's what almost everybody thinks we do, right? The colors. So I said, okay. And I took the plans and I brought them home. I called my father and I said, I quit my job. And he said, what do you mean you quit your job? I said, I quit my job. I'm going to start a company. And he said, are you out of your mind? What if it doesn't work? And I said, it can't not work. So I just started designing. I looked at the plans, and they were probably done by a library office furniture dealer whose goal was to sell product. And I saw things like some egress violations because furniture was in there. So I sat down at the kitchen table, I redrafted the plan. I called the library director Monday morning and said, meet me please for lunch. And I showed her the plan and I said, I know you didn't hire me to do this, but I just want to show you something. And I saved them enough money with that floor plan so they could pay for my contract. And they immediately gave me a contract for 3 more libraries, expanded the scope of services because they were beginning to understand what interior design was. And long story short, it was the largest library system in the state. And libraries were a perfect fit for me because as a writer, I spent a lot of time in libraries and they were familiar to me. So those of you who are coming into design from past careers or professions, I just encourage you not to turn your back quickly on that because you bring a lot of knowledge of that specialty. And if you're interested in commercial design, you have a lot to contribute from all that knowledge that you bring as a designer. So that was how the firm started, and we specialized in libraries from day one. And I'd say throughout the career, it was about 98, 99% libraries. So what I'd like to do is show you a project, one of our projects. So this is me, you know me so far. So I picked this project to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Library and Archives because everybody's familiar with rock and roll, right? And it's kind of an iconic project, but for me, it was the most interesting and challenging project. It took us 10 years. We went through 3 changes of museum directors. The project eventually was designed for LEED certification. When it began, there was no such thing as LEED certification. And it was the best use of design thinking for me personally. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I think designers think differently than everybody else on the face of the planet. And designing really is problem solving, right? So when I went to Cleveland, I saw this beautiful, iconic building designed by I.M. Pei, and very similar to his design for the Louvre, the entrance to the Louvre, if you've seen that. And it was funny, I saw him interviewed on a documentary, and he had never heard rock and roll before. He was asked to design this building, and he'd never heard it since. And the board in New York, which consisted of Clive Davis and Jan Winter from Rolling Stone and these big music people, just wanted a big architect to design this museum. They were very excited to make this wonderful museum. And indeed, he did. So when I got the call to come to Cleveland to help them design the library and archives, I said to them, well, where is your library and archives now? And they said, well, we don't have it. Here's where it used to be. And where it used to be, can you see my cursor? Yes?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this building is almost a nightmare for an archivist and a librarian because it's got flooded with natural light, which is detrimental to materials. And as you can see here from this view, it quite literally sits in Lake Erie, and water is another anathema to an archivist. This space that I.M. Pei originally had designated as the library and archives was on the lower level, so it was very close to the water, and yet it was flooded with natural light. So they never established the library and archives. So I got there and I said to them, so let me talk to your librarian. And they said, we don't have a librarian. I said, okay, so archivist, I'll need to interview the archivist. And they said, we don't have an archivist. And I was a little taken aback and I said, okay, well, show me your collection. And they said, well, it's kind of spread out. The people in New York collect things and we collect things and we don't have any space for it. So we kind of stuff them in the knee holes in our desks. And then this guy named Woody comes and he takes things we collect out to this warehouse in Cleveland. So I said, well, do you have a mission? Do you know what the goal and the strategic plan for the library is? And it was like I was speaking a different language. So I had two choices then. I was being asked to design a space for a collection that they had no idea how large it is, nor how it would grow, nor how it would be delivered. They didn't have a staff. And they didn't have a mission or a goal for this space. So I could have said to them, this is really interesting. Why don't you give me a call when you have more in place? Or I could have helped them solve all those issues. And I chose to do the latter. So I really had to do a lot of research and design thinking to help them establish a program. And what I did was drew on my ASID training in leadership. You learn strategic planning. So I took them through a strategic plan, helped them craft a mission statement. Then I convened, did research, identified industry people in the music, people in music libraries, the well-respected music libraries around the country, convened a focus group of them in Cleveland to help the staff at the Rock Hall decide what this thing could be for them. And then I did focus groups with users, potential users. Those were students, writers, musicians, researchers, press, and asked them how they might like to access these materials and what materials they might need. So this program was beginning to take shape. But I felt we needed to go an extra step. So I researched where the most well-respected museum libraries were, and I took them on a field trip to the Baseball Hall of Fame and then the Country Music Hall of Fame so they could meet those people, the librarians and archivists, and understand operations and fire suppression systems and all kinds of technical aspects of what they were planning to do. So that was part of the programming. Do you think that's design? Is that what you're learning in school? Projects are different. People say to me sometimes, oh, commercial design, isn't that boring? No. So the first thing they did after we determined that the library and archives couldn't be located in their building is they looked to next door to the Science Museum shown here on the top left, and they said, well, I think we ought to ask them if we can partner with them. And there was a plot of land between, shown here on the lower right and top left, that the two museums abutted. And they said, maybe we can build something there. So at that point, an architect was hired. And that's also unusual in commercial projects. Unless you're part of an architectural team, sometimes interior designers aren't hired until they're almost an afterthought. The building is designed and then someone says, oh, well, what's it going to look like inside? And interior designers are brought on board. But the architect was hired after me, and he wanted square footage requirements. And I honestly didn't have a good grasp on that. So off I went with Woody on his Harley out to the warehouse in Cleveland to measure boxes and talk to the people in New York. And to project growth in a library collection, you look at the past rate of growth, but there was no basis to do this. So we were giving our best guess, and we came up with a feasibility study in square footage. And then they said, well, we have to just, we're not in a position to buy the land. We'll have to implore this adjoining museum to give us some space. And I said, you know, it occurs to me you bring a lot more to the table than just needing space. Your iconic museum, you kind of put Cleveland on the map. And that's where my PR training came in. And they said, oh, you're absolutely right. Would you help us negotiate with this museum? So that was the first part. I said, I'll go to the meetings with you. And I also became negotiations person with them. And that was a role that continued through many other partnership opportunities. They, a local community college, the museum didn't work out. A local community college approached them, Cuyahoga Community College, to partner with them, and that didn't work out. There were five other potential sites for this library, with Case Western Reserve University, MK Anderson Building, another science museum. There were 5 potential partners. This took a period of years. With each of these partners, I was involved in negotiations and then doing space planning for each of these. This took years. When none of these seemed that they were going to work out, the project came to a dead stop, and it kind of lied fallow for about 2 years. And then I got a call again. Okay, we are partnering with Tri-C, the community college, and they're building a new building, and they're going to give part of it to us. And they brought the architect back in, and the board said, we want you to design a space in this new building that looks just like the Rock Hall. And the architect and I looked at each other and we said, but the Rock Hall doesn't work as a library and archives, but that's what the people in New York wanted. So he designed, in this section on the right, something that resembled the triangulated glass facade of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We both knew that it's disastrous. Natural light is disastrous for library and archives. So I had to design around this. And this is where the library and archives is located now. It's about 10 minutes from the museum. And this is it branded, but you can see how much of this area is glass. So, and the rest of the storage for the archives is in the part of this building that is without fenestration. So that was program. Then we moved into schematics. Basically, the biggest challenge for museums is theft, and most of it is internal theft, theft from within. So everything had to be designed with security in mind. I had to bring in archivist to figure out how to manage a collection, catalog a collection. I had so much research to do through this project. It was a wonderful, wonderful learning experience. Basically, this building, the bottom half belonged to the college. The top half belonged to the Rock Hall. They brought trucks into Sallyport. Materials were offloaded. They were inspected here, quarantined. They either went into a conservation lab for repair, or they were sent upstairs in an internal elevator. Everything was designed with minimal materials because I designed the project, as I did every project, with sustainable standards in mind. Many times before LEED, when LEED first came out, it had a reputation of being expensive, so people didn't like to hear about it so much. So I was like this closet sustainability designer, and I just kept that in mind as I was designing this project. This is the first floor of the building. This is the only part that the public really gets to go into. They enter into the building through a common corridor shared with the college and enter into the library and archives. And the architect had an idea that he wanted to make this a basilica plan for sightlines, but it certainly didn't work out. And I put the perimeter, the offices on the perimeter of the building. The only public area is right here, the bathrooms, the glass area, and the archival offices. You can see where the glass area is that I kept that limited to kind of transient use. Those are browsers or people who just wanted to come in and browse the book collection. I added lots of space for growth here, and I created a service desk that was swung out using guitar as an inspiration so that the staff could have sight lines into this space. This configuration at the entrance is security. Everyone who enters has to check in, leave a license, put their coats and backpacks in a locker, and then they can use the library. And anybody who wants to research with original materials needs to make an appointment, go into the archivist's office, and somebody with white gloves comes downstairs from the storage and hands them materials and watches them use it. Very specific needs. The second floor is devoted mostly to the storage of the archives, and the perimeter is offices, again, with all of the back office part of a library. So cataloging and processing. This is film labs and sound labs. And here was a conference room for when they wanted to recruit somebody to make a donation. They were fighting eBay and still are. They would bring them in, sit them in the conference room, and I suggested they added a glass wall into the archives to see that whatever they donated could be secured. Again, this light glass area was dedicated to staff break room, and that's the way I handled that. Third area is complete archival storage. Once we finished the schematics, the museum learned that there was the Gund Fund was giving grants to any public projects or museum or for the public benefit projects that were designed to be submitted for LEED certification. So the Rock Hall wanted to back up and design this project to meet LEED certification. I knew in my mind that was no problem, but they needed a LEED accredited professional on the team. Nobody was a LEED accredited professional, including me, who had already said, I'm going to get this accreditation. And I had publicly stated it as president of ASID. I had taken courses, but I had yet to take the test. So I went back to New Jersey. I told my staff I'm taking the day off. I sat in my family room and reread that book and sat for the exam the next day and passed it. And so then we could submit this project as with a LEED accredited professional on the team. But I told them I can't shepherd this project through the process. Natalie, I'm sure you know what a to-do that is. And so they had to hire somebody to do that. And they said, well, okay. I forgot to tell you one part. This is kind of funny. When they were starting the project up again at Tri-C, they called me. They had asked me to write a job description for a librarian and archivist because they didn't even know what a library and archivist should do. So I helped them do that. I helped them place it in library media. And then when they were ready to begin this project for real, they said to me, can you help us write a job description for an interior designer? And I said, but I am an interior designer. I had done so many other things for them related to this project in the programming stage that they forgot that I was an interior designer. And it was over a period of years, that was pretty good. I took that as a compliment. I was a trusted consultant for them, and I was doing a lot of different things, and it was all to get them to the point where we could design a library and archives for them. So design development, we started out, I had in my mind something glamorous, and what you're seeing here is the entrance with graffiti, because one of the coolest things in the Rock Hall is that every visiting musician and rock star signs on the lower level. It's not for public access, signs stuff on the brick walls down there. It's pretty fascinating to read. And I thought that would be great to recreate to the entrance, but they didn't like that. They wanted this to be more academic, and I didn't understand that at first. I thought because they had I.M. Pei design this iconic building, they wanted it kind of glamorous and glitzy, but they didn't. And it took me 2 tries at this entrance to understand what they wanted. And so I said, okay, no graffiti, but because this is a shared corridor, let's do a canopy with dimensional letters, and let's have it backlighted, and maybe we can screen something on the back. And they said, no go, no go. And then I got it. I said, they really wanted to lend credence to this music genre, and they want it serious. So I pulled everything back, literally. I pulled the canopy back. I pulled the dimensional logo and letters, and that was what was approved. And the desk, I didn't want to use signage in this project. Libraries, if you frequent them, are filled with signage, and I just wanted as little product as possible in this library. And I knew I could design with lighting and graphics wayfinding. So I proposed that they put very famous musicians, blow them up and put them behind their service desk. And they said, no, we can possibly do that because someone who's not involved will be upset that they weren't involved in the portraits. So the next one we did when we were doing color studies for them, we cut off all the faces and we just made musician body parts and showed it to them. They weren't buying that either. So this is what they said, that was a little bit too serious, and this was the final color study that they did approve. I wanted concrete floors and no ceilings, and they wanted this much more corporate and really academic. So I had to bring it in. And it's funny, after working with them for almost 10 years, it took that long to understand exactly what they wanted. But we got there. And this is a design concept of the security desk that I showed you as you come in. So people enter, they go around here. I wanted the lockers concealed from the public. They get an appointment to go into the archivist room, or they'll come out to use the library free range. I put as part of the design process its own slide, research, because I think that through every part of a design process, you have to do research. And this project was unlike any other. I was talking to people all over the world about what I needed to know. Design documentation, you've all seen these drawings. There were a lot of them, especially the more custom the furniture got, the more detailed the drawings got, so we could barely read them ourselves. And then getting into finishes, this was back when you did boards for presentation. As I said, I designed this to lead platinum standards, the interiors, and brought it in under budget. And I used rubber flooring where I could. I used tile with recycled content. I think the carpet had 74% recycled content, no VOC paint, things like that. The furniture I kept to a bare minimum for 2 reasons. One, so that the staff couldn't store things and theft may be discouraged. And the other reason was I wanted it as flexible as possible because they really did not know what this library and archives would be. They knew that formats were changing. They knew that they weren't sure how they were going to deliver the information to people, and the staff would be changing. I worked with Materials Connection on a couple of surfaces like this top with recycled aluminum shavings to give them unique materials where I could, but locally sourced. I worked with manufacturers to go over the glue. There was no press board, no laminates at all on this project, other than I had to do it in the archival conservation area because they needed a stain resistant surface. This is some of the staff areas. Again, you can see it's just basically wood and steel. And most of the furniture can be 100% recycled when it was done. And when you get into archival storage, it's almost all steel. These are just some shots of the holding room, the quarantine room. That word takes a totally different meaning now, right? The big refrigerator, if something was, say, infested with bugs, a book, it gets put in a refrigerator. I had to research all kinds of equipment that they needed and talk to experts. This is the only laminate, the chemically resistant laminate that I was talking about. Most of the furniture you can see is on wheels and flexible, designed to be changed as the museum's collection changed. This is a product that wasn't on the market yet that we got through Materials Connection, and it's compressed paper, and that was great for the sound labs and video labs, and they have carpet, as you can see. And again, here's staff offices. Everything's designed to be moved, not so glamorous, but definitely flexible. There's so many people in the shop because it was the opening day, but these are the compressed files, the movable files for those of you who aren't familiar, and the very different HVAC system. This is the staff area, break area overlooking the public space. This is what the staff would see if they looked down into the public area. This is the not so glamorous entrance into the common hall. But the community could have kissed them. They sat on the presentation and they heard the whole conversation about not wanting to blow up faces. And they took that concept and they put it throughout the hallway and they mimicked the canopy. So they really made that hallway, that corridor look special, that lobby area. This is a close-up of the material I used throughout the public spaces with the recycled aluminum shavings. Whoops. Back. This is the archival room where people would come and visit and have original materials brought to them, and somebody would sit with them while they use them. And we worked with some of the major furniture manufacturers to use these special materials to manufacture the furniture. This is the desk. When they told me I couldn't use the mural, I ran and picked out another color, a contrasting color for the back of the service desk. And then lo and behold, you can see what they did after they opened the library. They put a almost big poster with some very recognizable faces on it back there. This is the staff area behind the service desk. This is public area. I placed the books at right angles to the sun to minimize direct sun gain. Steel end panels, very minimal furniture. Bathrooms, everything is, it's pretty rock and roll in there. And another view of the installation. So there you go. Questions?
So many questions. We're going to start fielding them. I'm going to go first, and they're to both. The first couple ones are to both of you, and then it'll get specific. And Susan, go ahead and take this first one if you want to. In your work, you've worked with many different personalities. How have you managed the difficult client? Can you give us an example? That's a question to both of you.
I love that question. That's one of the reasons I think I gravitated towards commercial design, because I found residential design to be on such a personal level that the relationship is very different. I think difficult personalities are I don't know. You just learn how to handle them. I don't know, Beth, you can, you were talking about clients as friends. I found that to be true too. I think my skills as a journalist and interviewing and listening to people help with that difficult client question. Is Beth here? Did we lose her? Oh,
I
good.
also, no, I'm back. I agree with you totally. That's why I selected commercial design also, because the residential part does get very personal, and that's when you see another whole side of the person that you didn't see when you worked with them on a commercial part. And I think it's also your personality also, of how you deal with people. And I think that when you have someone who is difficult, it's just that you just know that they are, and you just, I don't know what it is, but you just know how to deal with them. It happens. I mean, we do have difficult clients, and you just take it every day, and you just, be positive, and you just be professional, and you just plow through what you need to do to get the job done. And I think that since there's so many different personalities, I'm very fortunate to say I haven't really had many difficult clients, because I think that you just start understanding them, and then you get to their level. It's tough. Sometimes you're like, it's like a whole psychology thing.
Mhm.
I'm going to ask one of the, Deirdre asked the question, but I'm going to sort of modify it. And I want to ask it in, has your presentation style evolved from the beginning of your career to how you present your work now?
You mean in the verbal sense, or in
Uh,
the
Not a
technology?
technology drawings, like when you
Okay,
talk about
so
drawing.
when we first started that, drawing for Sunshine and Biscuits, that was all manually drawn. We didn't have computer CAD at the time, and everything was, you had to use your drafting skills to draft everything. Also Susan showed drawings that were hand drawn, which now everybody relies on different software to do that. So I think that it's nice to be able to still have that as some skill that you keep, that you can use, because I've been at meetings where we grabbed a stack of 8.5 by 11 paper out of the copy machine on our way into the meeting, and just drew our way through the meeting. And is this what you want? Is this what you want? And just keep going. So if we had a computer doing that, it wouldn't have worked. But I think so many people rely on the computer now, but you can't do that. You always still have to have your the skills that the creative skills that you have to use.
Raina?
All right, so this one's for both of you. How many iterations does it take to convince the client usually? I know, Susan, you spoke about going back and forth for the Rock and Roll Hall job, but when do you get to that phase when you're making just smaller changes, nothing big?
Well, excuse me, speaking about the Rock Hall, that was unusual. That was unusual because there was a New York board and they were never present at meetings. They would just weigh in after some decisions were made. And there was a Cleveland board. And so Rock Hall was probably the best example of the most iterations. Generally, I have to say that I rarely did iterations. That it was presented, if I explain why I'm presenting what I'm presenting and the thought that went into it, and where the light's coming into the room, the sustainability of the materials, that's no longer a dirty word in design presentations, maintenance, why things were selected, the culture of who's using the space, then I honestly, I don't really have that problem. I don't know, Beth, maybe.
No, I think that you have to limit the amount of options that you give them, especially your designs and the people that are involved. I know that you work on with different committees, and so do we on different projects. And the one government project, we have 20 something subcontractors on the project as part of our team on our Zoom calls every week. So I think that you have to rely on your expertise, and I think they rely on you for your professional advice to give them. Everybody's different. And I think that you pretty much can gauge what they're like, especially after working with them for so long. You then know what they get after a while, that you don't have to really go through a lot of revisions. I think also when we develop our contracts, we tell them how many revisions they're allowed. So I think that they are aware of how many they are allowed so that they don't go over. And if they do go over, they have to pay for it. So sometimes that stops them from making changes.
Yeah. Deidre has asked a question that I think it's Susan, it was directed to you because you're a career change. Deidre asked, for those of us who are moving into design as a second career, how do we make the transition? What pearls of wisdom can you share, Susan?
How do you make the transition? I know there are economical factors involved, at least there were for me. So I just made sure I could support myself and my family. And I got a job, I think I said, in a commercial design firm, which wasn't my first choice, but the income was a priority. So I had that foundation under me, and that enabled me to leap to own my own firm. But I've been very fortunate in life to do what I love to do and just find a way to do it. Does that help? I don't know if that helps.
Yes. I will quote you. It can't not work.
Exactly.
Everyone, that's a very, very good quote for people to take away. Okay, MJ.
So this one was asked for Beth originally, but it's a good question for both of you. Did your first project scare you?
I think coming right out of college and having a project, I think you're not really so polished as far as your presentation skills. And I remember getting the jitters having to go to a meeting because I had to make a presentation. I think after all these years, you get to the point where you just do it and it's just natural and it just comes to you, and it just, you know what you're talking about. So it feels good and it's easy to present. And I think part of it is just doing it over and over and over again. And then that's what, it just comes so natural. You don't even think about it anymore. And yeah, I guess in the beginning it was a little scary, but I think, now I don't even think about it. It just happens.
I wasn't afraid on my first project. I think when Jan Winter summoned me to New York, I was nervous. And I usually get nervous anytime I present. And I've actually presented around the world. And I've presented to as many as 1,000 people. And like Beth said, when I present design, I know what I'm talking about and I'm confident, but I still get nervous just because I'm a nervous speaker. And I don't think it's ever gone away from me.
Very good. For both of you, what has been the toughest obstacle you've had to overcome?
Should I go first, Beth? You're on mute. For me, the toughest obstacle is being in a male-dominated industry, is sometimes being heard and being understood. And that can happen from a contractor going to a client at the last minute saying, oh, I can't get this carpet fast enough for this job, and you're having the grand opening, and the reason is the contractor didn't order it, and going around me and directly to the client. And kind of those backhanded communications are probably, I don't know if they were tough, they're just annoying, and it took time, valuable time to address.
I agree, totally. That's why I left my position that I had at my firm. And that's why I knew that I wasn't going to become a partner because I was a woman and I needed to move on. And like I said, times were very different then. It wasn't like it is now. And now we're recognized. And that's why I am now certified as a WBENC member. So now I can become as a minority firm in projects, and some companies request a certain percentage of minority firms to be on their projects, especially the state projects. So it gives us another in to get into different types of work that we normally wouldn't be doing. I also agree with you about the one thing that really annoys me the most is when people go directly to the client and make changes, which have happened to us on big projects of ours, where they switched out the carpet without us knowing. And then the client calls back and says, oh, I'm so happy we saved all this money on the carpet. That carpet you selected saved us this much. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And then we found out that the carpet was switched, and it's like no one gave us a sample for approval. And we usually work from the floor up. So we selected everything to go with the carpet, and it was all changed. So it changed everything. So another thing that gets annoying is when things get discontinued, because we've worked on projects for 5+ years, like I know you have too. By the time you select them to the time they actually get built, all your finishes are completely obsolete. So you have to go back to the drawing board and you have to make new selections because everything is not available anymore. So it's like, and it's just, that's what happens.
Yeah.
And then the style almost changes. So you're like, okay, we have to change it anyway. So why don't you pick this instead? So it's just, that whole evolving, it's just, going with it. But there's also those obstacles that you just have to deal with that are just something that happens, and you just have to deal with them.
Okay. Beth, you can answer this one first. What usually is your response to people that think all interior designers do is decorate?
Well, I think I think that's one of my pet peeves. And sometimes I really cringe when people call me a decorator, because I think everybody who is a designer, especially that, we've gone through the effort of becoming certified, taking our CEU courses to make sure that we are, have all of the qualifications, checked off the box so that we can continue and elevate our profession. And I think that's what's really important for us to everybody to still, try to take the exam, become certified, because the more people that do it, it just makes our profession even more professional and more, we have a stand where, it really, it's just something that's one of my pet peeves. And that, there's people that are practicing that are not educated, and they don't know codes. They don't know how to draw elevations. They don't understand the sustainable part of, the whole aspects of, people working, and they just want something that looks nice. And I think that's their goal, where we have so many different things to consider along the process to give you an end result. Even though you see the photos of pretty pictures, you don't understand what it took to get to that point. So you don't know how, it doesn't tell you how many modifications you made, how many times the client changed their mind, how many, times the painter messed up and you had to redo the wall and things like that. So I think, it's just the process.
So Jeffrey, if you want me to contribute to that,
Yes.
if somebody has a conversation about a decoration, if they want to enter into conversation, I just say that decoration is a very important part of what I do. I don't think decoration is the strongest part of what I do, but I say to them, like, for example, if you get out of a shower and you slide across your bathroom floor because your tile is so slippery, I'm going to guess an interior designer didn't pick it out because an interior designer would check the slip coefficient rating before they specified that tile, and just take their everyday experience and give them some example of the type of knowledge that we would need, and then let it go.
Wow, that's an awesome way to handle that question. Okay, MJ.
Terry Fiore had a question about how do you estimate how much time goes into research for your projects?
Every project is so different. We had a behavioral health project that was for very severe cases of behavioral health from adolescents to, or actually pediatrics to geriatrics. It went through all phases of life. And to work on a project like that, there was so much research that we had to go back and take care of, because it wasn't a common project in healthcare that we would normally take on. And because it was such severe cases, we spent so much extra time researching product and sustainability for things that you would never think of. I mean, we're talking about, you couldn't have chairs that had screws that were exposed on the bottom of the chairs, because they would take the screws out and use them to cut themselves or use them as weapons. You couldn't use you had to have a heavy chair so they couldn't pick it up and throw it at someone. So it was like all these things that, and colors, there are certain colors that you could use and you couldn't use, that typically in a healthcare environment you could. So it was, for something like that, you really can't. And it's always something for me. I feel like I could do it faster than anyone else can. So I'm always a bad gauge, because I'm like, oh, I could do that. And I go into the library, I pick it out in a second, where it might take someone else, 5 hours to do it. And then I think, oh, that's nothing, I could do that. And then you start getting involved in it. And then you realize, oh my God, this is really hard. Like, this is a lot of work. So that's the one part that after you keep doing projects, you get an idea of what a gauge is. We can also look at projects that we've done in the past, and we designate our time on our time sheets very specifically, so we can go back and see how much time past projects were used to do that type of research. So it gives us a little bit of a gauge also. So I mean, that's what we do, but it is a really hard thing. I feel that's one of the hardest things to gauge, is the research time, because it is different on every project.
I agree with Beth. If you have some kind of history of project type, that's certainly helpful. If you take a project where you need very specialized information, and that you don't know what it is yet, I think you would structure your contract with your client to go on some kind of a retainer, or figure out a way that compensates you for your time. I'm not sure any client is going to be thrilled if they get a bill for research, because they say you're the expert. We have never billed for research called out as such, but we have billed for time that went to research, and just put programming or called it whatever it was.
Very good. We have a follow-up question to a question earlier on iterations. Now, on the client side, who approves the designs? What is their job title likely to be?
That depends on the structure of the company and the structure of, in my case, we dealt mainly with public libraries. So sometimes it was the library director when the board had given the library director that ability. Sometimes I was presenting to boards in which 9 people were making a design review decision. So the titles can vary. In the case of the Rock Hall, there was the hidden board and the board that I was presenting to, and also the staff. So it's usually someone very high up in the organization, depending on the structure of the organization.
Final question for the night, and it's for both of you. What's the best advice you can give to future designers that are in the room tonight?
That's a great question. The best advice I would give to you is do the best possible job you can for your client. Keep your client's needs in mind and always ask yourself, is this the best possible solution for the client, and work ethically?
I feel that you need to get as much experience as you possibly can. I was lucky enough to have a lot of different types of experience, but it's not what you learn in school. And as much as you can, do a project that is that has a syllabus and it has an imaginary client. It's nothing like having a real project and doing different types of things. I mean, from, just my co-op experiences, I was running around and like printing blueprints for people and running to different floors and tagging furniture for people and just doing things that people just asked me to do. But I learned so much just, at each one of the projects, the facilities that I worked at. So all that different types of knowledge that you get is only going to, I think, make you a more well-rounded designer and understand the process even more. So I would say get as much experience as you can, as even if you can, work for free somewhere at some designer, or try shadow somebody, or work as a paid intern somewhere, and get as much experience as possible, because I think that's really what, then you're going to decide what you really want to do and what you don't want to do.
Great. MJ?
Yeah, wow, guys. So we have reached 8 o'clock. So unfortunately, we have to end this. But I want to say thank you to Susan and Beth for the incredible, inspiring presentations that they give, and I want to say thank you to everybody that came and participated, and such great questions. Maybe we can, from the recording, we can write the questions down and send them separately to Beth and Susan, and get you guys some answers.
Be happy to do that.
Right.
Yes, me too. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you both. MJ, thank you so much for organizing this and for serving as a great moderator. Susan and Beth, the chat box is just going wild because people are so inspired. And I think students are feeling so encouraged and inspired from what you both presented tonight, and that it's our goal with Student Week. So thank you both. It was really wonderful. And Terry Fiore, I'll turn it over for you for our final word of the evening.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love those closing words. Just get as much experience as you can. So thank you, MJ, Susan, and Beth. This is awesome. Jeffrey, for putting this presentation together as well. Thank you, everyone. Takes a village.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
everyone.
Bye.